Osiris here, stuck in the middle. And you know it's deep when I'm taking time out of a football Sunday away from my Browns, who I'm expecting to skyrocket in the league right now, to write an outline for this video. But I did it, and it's well worth it. I think Trump's going to win. And before anyone on the red team gets excited that there's another voice out there, no matter how irrelevant my voice is, saying that Trump is going to win, who knows what's going to happen. And my wife always clowns me about my predictions. I actually thought the Tennessee Titans were going to make it to the Super Bowl last year. So before you get excited or before you get disappointed, Democrats, take that into account. This might be a good thing for you, Democrats, this prediction. Here are my thoughts. In this video, I am not talking about whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. I am a supporter of whoever our president is. So if Joe Biden wins, I will support him from the standpoint is I want him to do well and represent the U.S. well, because aren't we on the same team? So I'm definitely not voting for Joe Biden. I'm definitely not voting for Trump. This video is more about just what I think is going to happen and what I'm seeing. Ground game. When you look at politics at any level, the number one thing is what is your ground game. It's always been that case. It's what propelled Obama, which I have so much respect. Obama had a lot of negative things about his presidency. One thing I respect about how he ran was his ground game. When he went to Iowa, he didn't just go to the city. He went out to rural areas, and his team did. And they hit everyone up. And that is something I don't know why no one has replicated that since Obama did it. So Trump has a ground game. He's not reaching out to the city. Well, he's got that not silly, I wish it was true, the Platinum Plan. But he's not really reaching out, just throwing that stuff out there. His ground game isn't in the city. His ground game is to create new registered Republican voters. And when you compare it to Joe Biden's ground game, Joe Biden's ground game is non-existent. And you can say it's about the virus, and it might be to be healthy and to be respectful. But I think it is in part that to show a contrast between Trump, because they want to make the virus a big contrasting issue. I don't know why they don't have more of a ground game from a team standpoint in places like Michigan, but that is a big factor. And Trump is registering more new voters 2 times to 1 over Democrats. These crowds that I'm seeing, they can't be ignored anymore. I never thought crowds meant anything at all until Trump ran and won. Now, I didn't have a YouTube channel then, but I did also predict, of course, it's just completely off feeling. I'm not doing scientific polling. But from what I saw, I predicted Trump to win in 2016. I'm predicting it again now. And these crowds, take a look at this. And all this stuff is going through my head. Like, is this bought and paid for? Or how is Trump doing this in the middle of a pandemic? Bringing out crowds to this magnitude. This doesn't even look real. The only people who can bring out crowds like this are Bernie or AOC. There's no one else in politics that could draw crowds like this. That is special stuff as far as politics. This is not saying I love all of his policies. Just as running as a politician, that is special, represents a connection to his people. It's insane. In the middle of a pandemic, to be bringing people out like this, amazing. These crowds are I'm not going to really do it, so I'll just blur it out to make it look like it. That is the middle finger to establishment Democrats and establishment Republicans. You see that crowd? That message is we are going to hug, we are going to love Trump because we hate what you guys have done. That includes you, Mitch McConnell. That includes you, Nancy Pelosi. Do you realize that a significant, to me, amount of people, Bernie bros or Bernie supporters, went to Trump in 2016? after Bernie didn't get the nomination. That was the middle finger. Bernie's not a Democrat. Bernie's as much of a Democrat as I am. I'm none of the above. Bernie's an independent. So what you're seeing is the people who get these crowds are not establishment party people. No one is more establishment than Joe Biden. He couldn't get crowds like this if he wanted to. Obama couldn't get crowds like this. Right now, he couldn't get crowds like this if he wanted to. So what would motivate people to follow this guy like it's a cult? Donald Trump's a rich guy. He's grown up with all the things that people dreamed they had. Why would you follow him like he's a populist? Cancel culture and the left. What the left doesn't understand is when you are unfair, when you are overly biased, I view life as a balanced equation. I have a background in mathematics and statistics, and I view life as a balanced equation. So if you are on the left, I'm going to do my left, and you balance things out where you are outrageous, you are intolerant, you are making moves without any due process, any respect. And what we're looking at are things like marching down the street when people are resisting arrest and literally threats to police officers' lives. And we're acting like the police are devils. That is unbalancing the scale unevenly. What you do is you force the right to unbalance it also. And it's the same with the right. With Kyle Rittenhouse, for example, the young man had no business being there. Nobody asked him to protect anything. He's in the middle of a hostile situation with a gun. I'm not a legal expert, but I know for me, for common sense, that ain't self-defense. But if you're on the right, you're like, oh, they attacked him. Oh, he was just protecting things. So then the left, Antifa's okay. Rioting's okay. That's what's happening in our country. Now, the imbalance is that far more of our media is left-leaning. So far more of our media is unbalancing the scale on the left. Let me just rattle down some things. So the left attacks Trump for not denouncing racist groups. Fair. He has denounced them, but why is it so awkward to? I have no idea. It's not hard to do. I don't know why it's so awkward when he has to do it. Fair. But when Biden is asked about Antifa, he says they're an idea. What? That shouldn't be hard either. But the left lets that go. So they're unbalancing the scale just a little bit. Then you've got the cancel culture, where you've got people like Jemele Hill, who says, if you vote for Trump, you're racist, period. Asinine. Left, unbalanced. And nobody checks her. Nobody on the left says, what are you talking about? It's just mostly people on the right, maybe in the middle. So that's more. So I'm going to rattle off some more things. There's a ton of things. Recently, the riots in Philly, not covered on the left. Like almost literally not covered other than YouTube or Twitter. Don't get me started on the Hunter Biden story. Joe Biden to this day has not confirmed that these things are inaccurate. To this day has not done that. Media is not covering it. So that tips the scales. And that's where you see the crowds. And that's what blinds people from the faults. Everyone knows what Trump's faults are. They know he's rich. They know he's not one of them. But when you unbalance the scales, you feel like an underdog. I'm a Browns fan. I'm an underdog. And that makes me love them more. And if they win, that makes me happier. So you've created this underdog effect that is really powerful. So the thing about pollsters are, I believe in God. What I don't believe in is the story of God or the discussion around religion as told by my fellow man. Because I know my fellow man and woman has biases and they have different interpretations than I might. I like to hear the story directly from the source. So, for example, science and climate change. There's this talk about trust the scientists, trust the scientists. Well, no, we can't do that. Because if you trust the scientists, then you can find scientists who disagree. So which scientists do you trust? So it's more than just trust the scientists. It's if you're an expert and you have time to dig into the actual research that was done, you can form an educated opinion. But who has time for that other than experts in the field? What it is common sense. So I use polls to back up what I see in real life. Because I trust the science of polling. It's amazing. I once took a class on it, statistics and polling. If you get your parameters, if you get your assumptions, your modeling close enough, you can be scary accurate with polling. I believe in the science, or the math really, probability around polling. Absolutely believe it. What I don't believe in is the motivation behind the companies that are pollsters. Because these polls include assumptions that you can tweak just out of the blue. You can tweak them as much or as little as you would like. So you look at some of these polls and you look at it, and some of these polls are polling registered voters, and some of these pollers are polling likely voters. So I mentioned earlier, Trump's getting registered voters. He has to make sure that those registered voters actually vote. So when you do polling, I don't want to see the data on the registered voters, which obviously is a good thing to do to bring out registered voters, but that's not how I would do my polling. I want to do my polling on likely voters. Because young people are untrustworthy with voting. Older people are more trustworthy with voting. Who's likely to vote? The other thing you need to look at with polling is sample size. Some of these pollings that you see out here have sample sizes under 1,000. For me, from what I know, from my background in math and statistics, I need polling, and from reading, I need polling with at least 1,300 people. If you don't have 1,300 people in your polling, you're irrelevant to me. Let's go back to the motivation of pollsters. What is the goal of poll? Why do they do these polls? And they do them for free. They do these polls and they give them to news sources and outlets and they report on it for free. Why do they do that? Nobody in this country does anything for free. I for damn sure don't do anything for free. Well, other than this YouTube channel, but I enjoy it. It's just a hobby. But what I'm looking at is pollsters who have the motivation of getting exposure. And most of the media is left. So if you want exposure with most of the media, what are you going to do? You're going to tweak these numbers, these statistics, these assumptions, just to lean a little bit in the favor of Biden. And then when you take the average of all these polls, some will do it more than others, you're going to get a Biden win. Same thing happens with, if you want to get in with the conservative group or the right-leaning media like Fox News or many of the other right-leaning personalities, I can do this. I think these assumptions are fair to tweak, that non-educated white males are going to come out deeper in the rural areas. Let me turn that knob up a little bit. And my poll leans over to the right. Yeah, it's obviously easy to do. I am not going to analyze all these polls. I don't have time. It's not worth my time. But that's what you would have to do. So I trust the science, but I don't trust the motivation. And when you look at these pollsters, they want to get known, like Gallup, for example. Gallup gives away polls to promote the free market research for which corporations will pay for. Do you guys remember which polls were wrong and which ones were right in 2016? No. Nobody remembers. Most of them all were wrong. So if most of all of them are wrong again, what's the downside? There's no one's going to hold them accountable. And the general election, in my opinion, is a lot different than on the state level, or if you're looking at the national polling, or if you're looking at local polling. There's not as much motivation to skew things or to be biased at the local level. When we talk about getting CNN time and all the major media, that's a whole different ballgame. The other thing is, I don't know why we even release the national numbers. We obviously have an electoral college, not from the people. The people vote, and then the electoral college makes the vote on behalf of the people, and that's to balance out our country, because the popular vote, with the way that we're constructed, if Democrats don't get the popular vote, they really have no chance. It's very hard for them to win because California is highly populated. New York, highly populated. They're the most populated areas in our country, and they all count toward these national polls. Don't give a damn about a national poll. Now, I understand if Biden's winning by 20 in a national poll, it's over. There's no possible way, based on our population, that Trump could win the electoral college if Biden's up by 20. But that's not the case. Biden's not up by so much that it's not possible for Trump to win. There are avenues for him to win. So I don't have any science. Take it, leave it, do what you want with it. But what I see, my dad always told me, know your history. And he said that because of that famous saying, know your history or you're doomed to repeat it. The other thing is, polling is different now. 2020 is one of the most unique years in the history of our planet. What tweaks have our pollsters done? I haven't seen it. If you've seen it, let me know. I haven't seen tweaks to the assumptions. We've got way more early voting. What is that going to mean on election day? Nobody even knows. So the polling could be off by more than 2016. And that could be more in Biden's favor. Biden could win this in like an Obama landslide. But it could be off as well in Trump's favor. If you think Trump's not winning Ohio and you look at these polls and you see it's that close, I don't know. I can't help you because that can happen, but that would be groundbreaking. So I think there's an argument to be made for both sides of it. I just want to get my feelings out on it. Feel free to skewer me if I am absolutely wrong after Election Day. My big takeaway, though, is if you're watching this video and you made it to this end point of the video, I think you're probably going to be part of the solution. And when I say solution, the problem is bringing us back together. I don't care if you're far left. I don't care if you're far right. I don't care if you don't care about politics. You can be someone who helps the conversation be civil, and we can agree and we can disagree in a civil manner, and we're not going to burn our own effing country now, being played by people in power to pit us against each other when we have far more in common than we don't. So thank you for listening. Appreciate it. Take care.